This is Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions with Alastair Lynch, Tom Rockliff and Dylan Leach.
Welcome everyone to yet another edition of Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions. It's week 2 of the finals. Only 6 remain. Well, you know what's happening in football, because if you're listening to this show and you don't yet, then why are you listening in the first place? Hello, my name is Dylan Leach. Lovely to be with you for another week. And I'm joined by the ball magnet himself, everyone's one-time Supercoach captain. He won a few grand finals for Supercoach teams, that's for sure. Tom Rockliff.
Dill, thanks for having me. Very disappointing on one front, and the other team, my other old team, were good. So, yeah, a bit of up and down weekend for me. Port, disappointing. Brisbane, reasonably good, but again, inconsistent.
We'll get you to talk about Port in a bit.
Yep.
I think you did build the foundations there after all, so we've got to get your views on.
And I want to go at the MRO again.
Okay, done. Consider yourself lucky. Joining us down the line from Melbourne is a bloke who's got some idea how to play finals football. He played in a few flags, played in a few finals in his time. He's got some idea what he's talking about. He's in Melbourne, as mentioned earlier. It's Alastair Lynch.
Dylan, Tommy, good to chat again. Yeah, plenty going on in the AFL world, that's for sure. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Rocky. Your 2 tips for the flag weren't overly good on the weekend.
Yeah.
Who did I tip?
Had
Bulldogs are out. Bulldogs are out in Port. Yeah, no, it's good.
The kiss of death strikes again.
I think I said Hawthorn can't win it. Geez, I've changed my opinion on all 3. It's good to have you back, though, Lynchy. I think this time last week you were walking along the beach with the wife holding hands along the Gold Coast somewhere. You had a week off last week, didn't you?
He was here last week. He did a show
he was
last
on the
week.
show last week, but I think he had the week off, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a few weeks ago down, where was I? Cabarita, Byron Bay.
Tough old life for you there, Alastair, isn't it?
Oh, I had a day off first for about 9 weeks.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, no, good. We're back into it now.
I tell you what, though, you are right, Lynchy. Mr. Rockliff here on the program last week did spruik the chances of the Port Adelaide Football Club and the Western Bulldogs about how they could win the flag. There's been a bit said about before we get to Port, there was a bit said about the Bulldogs who are out. Some have said they've got the most talented list with the most disappointing results. Would that be a fair assumption?
No, I don't agree with that. I think they've got pieces of the puzzle. I don't think they're the best list in the competition, not the most complete. I think they've still got a few, the same as everyone. There's a few holes in everyone's list, but I mean, they don't really have a genuine centre-half back. Lob's gone back there and been consistent. He potentially will be in time, but he's still learning his craft down there. I think they've still got a couple of holes in their list, but they'll be disappointed with that. But again, Hawthorn are playing outstanding footy, and the Dogs, they only play the 3rd game at the MCG, so they don't get to play their brand of footy there a lot, which can affect that. So that game, if it's at Marvel Stadium, potentially goes a different way. So they'll be disappointed, but again, they're just, their best and worst is too far in between. They're just so up and down, and there's a couple of teams like that in the competition.
And the other team that has departed us, Carlton, they were basically making up the numbers, weren't they, Alastair?
Oh, absolutely. 2 wins in the last 9 games, West Coast and the Kangaroos. Yeah, it was too many players out of the team for the bulk of the year. And as we know, the very best teams become predictable to each other. You don't have mass turnovers of players. I get that they had to roll the dice. They were poor early. And the whole De Koning sub issue, it's backfired, and in hindsight, it's easy to say it was the wrong decision. But Pitnet, I think he pushed forward and dropped a mark in the forward 50 in about the 3rd minute of the game. If he takes that, they're having a shot at goal, and it lifts the confidence. But not only that, McInerney took 2 intercept marks a couple of minutes later in the defensive 50. So I just think, the ruckman just had a poor start, in the midfield had a poor start, and it all compounded from there. So that was disappointing. Just to go quickly back, Rocky, we're chatting about Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs. If you compare those lists, I think the Western Bulldogs has a much more talented, deeper list than Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide, and we've spoken numerous times about how good their midfield is, and it is. It's a deep midfield that didn't fire on the weekend. But I think maybe people are too harsh on Ken Hinkley, what he's done with his team the list isn't great. They've got a lot of holes in their forward line, down back, and especially if you compare it against the Western Bulldogs, you think, I'd be taking Western Bulldogs list well and truly before Port's.
Yeah, potentially. I think, Port still have holes in their list as well, but they've on-traded to bring in players. Maybe those players weren't as good as they thought. Radigalea, they thought was a key defender. They've had to play him forward because he didn't have the impact. Zirk Thatcher. They traded for a couple of ruckmen as well. Sweet's been serviceable. So I think potentially... the Western Bulldogs, I mean, they got done in the ruck where English has been outstanding all year and he didn't have a great night. And just to jump back to Carlton and what you were talking about, I think they lost it at match committee. And I think you said in hindsight, before the game, you could see that the only way that they could win that game was to dominate the ruck. So Oscar McInerney is a diesel engine who'll go all day. The only way they were going to win that game was dominance through the midfield. Pick your two ruckmen, play De Koning out of the square for as long as you can, sub him out if you have to at three-quarter time. I think they got it wrong at match committee. I would have played him from the start, and we said it throughout the call. It just had a smell to it from the start. De Koning, when he drifts forward, takes a mark, and Pitnet, when Curno's not there, you play those two ruckmen and pinch hit him in the ruck and then sub him out. You're making the call halfway through the second quarter to bring him into the game. I think they got it wrong. I think they have to acknowledge that. Yes, they had a few underdone players. They make 6 changes. You've got to pick which one's going to be the most versatile, or which one you think. If De Koning's not right, don't play him. But if you're going to play him. Don't pick him as a sub. Put him in the goal square and tell him to stand in the goal square. It takes a key defender. It takes Harris Andrews maybe deeper instead of being up the ground intercepting the footy, and it gives them a different option. 60 points down. I mean, they didn't turn up, but I think they lost it at match committee.
I must say, Carlton's performance in the finals was not the best advertisement to bring in the wild card round. If anything, Carlton was a great advertisement to bring back the final 5, given the performance that they dished up on Saturday night. Now, we want to get to Port Adelaide. The pressure is on them this week. They're playing Hawthorn, who, without doubt, are, I don't know if they're the hottest team in the competition right now. They're certainly the most enjoyable team in the competition right now. You watch Hawthorn, Hawthorn's playing, you're watching them. Everyone wants to watch the Hawks. They play footy for fun. They literally ride the bumps with a grin, as they say in the club song. They are a delight to watch, and momentum is everything at this time of the year. And it's fair to say, Tom, the Port Adelaide story in their AFL history has been very familiar come finals time, where they will dominate during the home and away season, and then week 1 or 2 of the finals, they bottle it up. And the pressure's on again. This happened to Mark Williams pretty much throughout his coaching career until they won in 2004. It's been pretty much the story of Ken's coaching career. What does Port Adelaide need to do? They need to win. How are they going to win? What do you think the pressure is like at Port Adelaide this week? And what did you make of that performance?
Oh, it's hard to make anything of the performance other than to be bitterly disappointed. I expected them to win, not blow Geelong away. Stewart was out. You think maybe Port Adelaide in an arm wrestle. Geelong are too good to ever ride off. I think you wrote them off last week, actually. Speaking about teams that I wrote off. But,
Scotty did the same thing that we did in 22, mate.
But
to rev them up.
I didn't see an 84-point drumming coming. I think Port Adelaide's inability to adapt when teams put pressure on them is glaring. We know that they want to build their uncontested marks, take the heat out of the game, and they just can't do that when teams put pressure on them. They go long down the line. They've lost Houston and Farrell off halfback, who are 2 of the best users in the competition, but also for Port Adelaide. So you lose a little bit of drive there, but you've got to find a way to stick to your guns and play your game plan. Geelong were superb. Their pressure they put on them, they forced them in areas they didn't want to go to. But Port, I think when they take over 90 uncontested marks throughout the season, they're like 10-1 or something like that. And when they don't, they don't win very often. And they just couldn't get it done. So credit to Geelong and their coaching staff and their players out there to execute it. But Port Adelaide, if they can't get their uncontested marks, they need to find a way to shift momentum or halt momentum when the opposition get a run on. That team that they've got there is no reason that they should have been belted by 84 points on their home deck. Potentially in the third quarter, yes, they know the game's over, so it doesn't really matter. It's not a home and away game. How do they fix it? They've just got to stick to their guns and play their brand of footy. They've got to build their uncontested marks this week. If Geelong made them look slow last week, imagine what Hawthorn are going to try and do to them this week. So they're going to try and run them off their feet. They've got to take the sting out of the game. Port Adelaide have to be hard in the contest. Ollie Wines needs to drive that. Butters through the midfield if he plays Horn-Francis. These guys need to get after it, win the contested footy, but then also build their uncontested marks. Make Hawthorn defend. Hawthorn are an outstanding offensive team, and they have been for a couple of years now. But if they have to defend, if you build your uncontested marks, make them defend for long periods of time, so that when they do turn over the footy, they don't have the energy to slingshot you the other way. We know their half forwards get up really high. Hawthorn do an outstanding job, turn up at ground level, but they've got to make them defend at some point, and you've got to do that early on in the contest for me. They probably will look to make changes. Big Dicko looks sore, but again, he had no chance. Lynchy would have played in teams when the footy moves the way it did. You've got zero chance, and he's always got a bloke hanging off him. Do they put Rosie to halfback? Rosie was played in the Sanford Grand Final as a halfback flanker. Potentially play him there. He didn't have a great night as captain of the footy club. He'll be looking to rebound, but they're going to have to pull some sort of lever, but I think they just need to get back to what makes them a good team.
There's the main story in the Adelaide Advertiser today. Of all places, Malcolm Blight reckons Port Adelaide need to shake things up a bit in selection. Where would you see Port Adelaide at this stage, Lynchy, looking from afar?
Oh, you'd be bunkering down this week and sort of trying to reset, and it's one they'll be thinking about. If you get sucked into the outside noise and the pressure that's building, it's just going to do your head in, and you'll play the game 5 times before you actually get to it on the weekend. So I think they'll bunker down, make some small tweaks, but clarity around roles. And I think Rocky touched on it. It was pretty hard with the poor ball movement forward of the ball for the big forwards. But they were intercepted against too much. And I think that's where I think they would have been disappointed, and they may look to Marshall to come in just as something different. But if Charlie and the big boys are there again this weekend, just got to have a presence forward of the ball. So, yes, your uncontested marking game's not going, so you're not moving the ball through the corridor. But when you're under the pump, and they'll be under the pump so much this week against Hawthorn with that pressure, if you're going to dump kick forward, you've got to have a big presence to get the ball to ground and then hold it in so it just doesn't bounce out. We just saw too much of that from Geelong. They just ran the ball out. And you're not going to always mark the ball. I think forward 50 marks for Port were a 7. The other end was 22 for Geelong. That's probably you could see the difference in the way the pressure was in the game. But no, they've just got a bit more of a pressure around the contest and certainly forward of the ball when the ball goes in as a dump kick, because we don't see nice passes that often in high-pressure finals games.
When you talk about bunkering down, you probably didn't have the same sort of pressure, obviously, being up here in Queensland, Lynchy. It's a different kind of fandom. But when you're a player in Adelaide and you're told to bunker down with the pressure that Port Adelaide's on, and we've spoken about the passion that the Port Adelaide supporters have, and a lot of them will be ready for the rapture if they go out in straight sets. That goes without saying. What do you do? How do you bunker down? How do you like? It's very easy to say, I'll just ignore the pressure and just stay within the 4 walls, but how do you do that?
Yeah, it's difficult. You can't go anywhere without people talking to you and wanting to talk to you about footy in Adelaide. So they've got to deal with that. Acknowledge it. That they'll probably spend a lot less time at the supermarket or the shopping centre or the cafes.
They won't be going to the pub the night before for a water and a meal, Jack Ginninvan style.
No, I don't think so. But it just comes back to doing what you do and making sure that you give yourself the best preparation. So whatever individually they need to do, and then as a team and a unit, make sure you have good training sessions, which I'm sure they would have. they've got to look at what they did against Geelong and why it fell apart so quickly, but quickly move on and also reinforce when they're playing their best footy what it looks like. So I'd nearly show them the first quarter of the last time they played Geelong at Kardinia Park, or the last quarter against Hawthorn. Maybe not so much the last quarter against Hawthorn, because you've thrown the playbook out and it's just go, go, go. So we turn up down there, just show some edits of what they do when they're playing really well, give them some evidence of the numbers and some markers and benchmark it. But you've just got to have belief in your system, and their system stacks up for large parts. And you've spoken about it in finals. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's just not getting done. So they've got an opportunity. They're still alive. They're not dead. They're alive. The season 2024 is still up for grabs, and they've only got to win 3 games of footy.
They have only got to win 3 games of footy. Does Ken need to win 3 games of footy, or at least 2 games of footy to remain in his position?
Oh, that's for a club decision. If they go out in straight sets, the noise around that will be massive in Adelaide. It'll be unavoidable, and it's going to be a difficult week if they go out. But I don't know if they can win. I'd love to sit here and say they can win, but I think I sat here last week and said I finally believed that they could win the premiership after their game against Fremantle. I thought you could trust them and their performance, and then they dished up that on Thursday night. So anything could happen. Anything could happen.
And I mean, the Hawks, they are just, as I said, they are without doubt the most fun and entertaining team in the competition right now. Speaking of fun and entertaining, from the weekend, the Sydney Derby was one of the best finals I'd seen in a while. That was as good a final. It is a proper rivalry now. The Sydney Swans were amazing. GWS were amazing. I genuinely hope that is the grand final this year. Yeah,
they're two great teams, and I think the Swans, almost typical of their last month of footy, hung in there whilst the Giants were dominant for most part. Probably didn't put enough of the score on the scoreboard, on reflection certainly, but just hang in there. And then Heeney's third quarter was incredible. What he was able to do, outside taking mark of the century that can't even be mark of the year.
Hang on, let's just get your hot take on this, because you are a mark of the year winner.
And I was trying to think. And
you need to. Yeah, sorry.
I was trying to think this morning when I was driving in. I think I found out I won Mark of the Year on Grand Final Day.
Yes, you've mentioned before you found out on Grand Final Day because it was a Channel 7 competition and people could vote for it during the Grand Final telecast.
Yeah, I don't know whether could they? Okay, yeah, I didn't realise that how they actually voted for it. But I found out Grand Final Day.
So you're a Mark of the Year winner. You approve that finals should be included, because we saw Mark and Goal of the Year on the weekend.
Yep.
That's right.
How are they not included?
Where was Alex Jezelenko's iconic mark?
It wouldn't have won.
It was a grand final.
It was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the greatest marks of all time. Brendan Goddard. Wasn't that a grand final at the top of the goal square? It was.
Leo Barry, Phil Baker. Ozzie Jones' goal in the 97 grand final is one of the best.
I don't understand why. So
I don't know.
No idea why. I think, we have a season that includes finals. If you don't qualify for finals, well, bad luck. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be Mark and Goal of the Year have got to go through to Grand Final Day, I would have thought.
I think if the Sydney Swans have a car sponsor, someone should just give Isaac Heeney a car just to...
Just give him the plane. I think the Emirates.
Give
him the plane.
We're getting him down.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's just another alteration the AFL's got to make when they review the Rising Star and those awards as well. Like, you've got to have the. It's stupid that your premier games aren't eligible to win those awards.
Yeah. To be fair, I used to think that you could be up for Mark of the Year in pre-season. I remember some certain marks being taken in NAB Cup, and I remember Russell Robinson took like a phenomenal mark in a Wizard Cup game, and it couldn't get given.
Yeah, I think we've got to change that. Yeah. So Isaac Heeney's third quarter.
As good a finals performance as we've seen in recent years?
Well, it was for 30 minutes.
Yep.
And
that's all you need.
Chad Warner's last quarter. And what he had, 13 touches, 7 clearances, 5 score involvements. Well, and Heeney. I mean, Heeney didn't have the huge numbers in the last quarter, but, I mean, his second half was amazing. But Chad Warner having such a quiet first 3 quarters and then to lift, I would say, when trying to think, what are the best quarters ever played. And if you look at the Sydney Swans, how many finals they've had some great finals up there. Tony Lockett's kick after the siren to get the point to put away Essendon. Nick Davis's last quarter, where I think they trailed it at three-quarter time by about 3 goals in a low-scoring game. He's kicked 4 goals in that last quarter. I reckon that's probably hard to beat as the best quarter of footy in a finals for the Sydney Swans. But Chad Warner, I thought Braden Campbell coming on the ground as the sub, he was good. James Jordan, not many people talk about James Jordan and how good a recruit he's been. He's played a pivotal role up there, and he was extremely good in that last quarter. So, great game of footy, a huge result for the Sydney Swans, and their class just keeps popping up towards the end of the games after putrid starts.
And Brodie Grundy as well. They got a free hit at him in the off-season to take him up there. I think we've seen some great games over the weekend, but my bugbear again is the MRO. How Nick Newman can get a fine for elbowing Lachie Neale in the head, and we have Isaac Heeney suspended for an accidental push-off separation. How he gets a week for that, and Nick Newman, we sit here off the footy and allow a bloke to throw an elbow at someone's head, and we walk away with a fine. The system is absolutely cooked, and they need to fix it. They need to fix it immediately. If he hits him in the wrong spot with that elbow, who knows what happens. But how he can walk away with a fine from that is incredible.
I tell you what, Brownlow night this year, when they're announcing if potentially Isaac Heeney's got the most votes and someone else has won Mark of the Year, it's you would hope he's playing in a grand final that Saturday.
Like, surely that's the act we want to see out of the game, not the Isaac Heeney one.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Spot on. I haven't read the details come out to why that's only a fine. But it is hard. I think there needs to be a lot of things pulled back over the summer and just let's start fresh.
Oh, yeah. As I said, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago on the pod, a complete reset of the MRO, literally rewrite all the rules again, and let's have some consistency. Yeah.
Just those are the ones that you want out of the game. If you want to protect the head and you're serious about it, you don't want people to be... And admittedly, I think Cam Rayner probably should have been cited for an elbow on Nick Newman's head as well on the ground. But again, finals footy, it gets thrown, like the playbook almost gets thrown out. But I just, the level of consistency around what's suspended and fines is ridiculous.
So the Brisbane Lions, one of your teams won on the weekend at Alastair. Your team won, Brisbane, through and through. Or Tassie. Well, they're not playing yet.
Undefeated still.
Undefeated, that's right. Haven't won, haven't lost. It's a great position to be in. They had a training drill for the first half at the Gabba. I think now percentage doesn't matter in finals, and a win's a win. But I thought their 28 points was a pretty disappointing margin given who they were up against, and I think their kicking. It goes without saying their kicking was appalling in that second half. And you can't, if you're going to play like that, I don't think you can win 4 games in a row to get a premiership. And that's the predicament they find themselves in. But it should be a cracking match against the Giants. And I'm still really big on the Giants, despite the loss on Saturday. But I think...
Just can't be that inconsistent in games. Their scorecard was exactly the same as Hawthorn's, but Hawthorn don't have a trend of doing it. Brisbane have a trend of butchering opportunities in front of goal, and I think there's still the same thing. And it was the prime play for me was when Charlie Cameron took about 7 bounces down the wing and then had a flying shot from 60 instead of laying it down to Cam Rayner inside 50. Just take the simple option, take the pressure out of it. Doesn't score, but... It was boys versus men early in that one. I compared it to Scotland versus Australia in the T20s at the moment. It was a bit of a waste of time that first half. But Carlton were much better. But Brisbane's inconsistency in and out of games this year has been a big issue. We've seen it. The 2 games that they coughed up a top 2 spot by doing exactly the same thing. Blew Collingwood away in the first quarter, then stopped. They did the same thing to the Giants. And then finished 5th, and now they've made their journey really hard. That was game over, so it didn't really matter. But you would have loved to see them just continue on their merry way.
Yeah, so I'm still going glass half full, and that's why I tipped them a couple of weeks ago to be still a chance to win the flag, because what they can do, they've got a number of things to iron out, and that sort of the accuracy. Well, the points is because they spend so much time in the forward 50. But, yeah, Logan Morris missing another one. Zach Bailey had an air swing in goal square there at one stage. But you can see what they're capable of doing. And so I'll stick with them. This would be a great game against the Giants on the weekend. Having lost both games to the Giants this year will be a challenge. You said before, Rocky, a lot of Carlton's issues were in probably match committee. Absolutely. Dane Zorko.
Oh, my goodness.
He's 2'4" and he's 45 years of age. He's a star, Dane, and absolutely should have been in All-Australian. He's an absolute star and he's one of the key factors. You've got to sit on him. He had 19 touches and I reckon it was at a ridiculously high disposal efficiency in that first quarter. When you talk about trying to restrict the uncontested marking of Brisbane, if you can do it, if you can shut down Dane Zorko, you're going to cut out a lot of marks because he's hitting darts into that corridor to get the fast ball movement going for the Brisbane Lions. He can't have 19. We saw in the second half when Hollands went on to him, he only had, I think, 9 or 10 touches for the second half, and a few of those were kick-ins as well. So, yeah, that's the number one focus for me. But he was dominant. The other thing that was reinforced in that first half, how important is Jack Payne? I mean, Jack Payne's just structurally, he's better than a good solid defender, but he's a defensive player. But what he does, he goes on to the opposition's best key forward, plays deep. Most importantly, that allows Harris Andrews to play across half-back because we've seen over the last probably 18 months, at times when Harris is sort of left there as the one key, he gets dragged back to the goal square. Brisbane don't want him back there. So it's really important, this fitness test for Jack Payne, to see whether he can come back and play this week. I think we got a fair read on what's going to happen. The last 3 minutes of the game, Harris Andrews was taken off the ground because of the concerns about Jack Payne. So you can't lose Harris Andrews as well. Eric Hipwood went to fullback to play on Harry Mackay. I think that's what we're going to see. So they may not bring in Joyce this week if Payne doesn't get up. They'll bring in Hipwood will go probably back to play deep and then allow Harris Andrews to still stay across half-back. So that's going to be an interesting week for the Brisbane Lions because Payne is a massive out if he indeed can't get up.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Zorko, I think it was 19 disposals at 83% or something, like 5 or 6 score involvements just set the game off half-back.
Absolute beast mode to the name of another former Lions player, but he is beast mode these days.
What about Dill? I was going to say, Dill, what about, we talk about, changes in the game and all this sort of stuff. What's your opinion on Jack Ginninvan's, not the pub visit, I mean, that's been done to death. What about his comments about, on the socials about he'll see Brodie Grundy in 2 weeks' time? There's a lot of my generation have driven the slipper into him about the comments. For me personally, I don't, it's not my go, but I don't see it as a massive issue. The only person that's going to put pressure on, it doesn't put pressure on Hawthorn, I don't think, this week. I mean, I think teams come up against Hawthorn and because they're cocky, they wouldn't mind seeing them fall down. But I think it only brings pressure onto Jack. And if he's prepared to put his head up, it's going to get whacked at some stage. Yeah. But I'd be more getting around him to make sure, do you really need to put that pressure on you? But if he wants to do it, fine. It doesn't make Port Adelaide for 1 second play harder against Hawthorn because of those comments. Well, so I like, if you want to go down that path, fine. You're putting pressure on yourself, but do what you want.
I'm inclined to agree with what you say, Lynchy, but it's also a bit of a classic Australian example of the football media as a whole goes, we need players with personality. Our players are so boring when we talk to them. Next minute, player shows personality. Oh my God, a player showed some personality. How dare he? He disrespected Port Adelaide. Well, to be fair, Port Adelaide disrespected the finals last week with that performance. So, Ginninvan is showing some personality. He makes things interesting. He makes footy fun. The pub thing was pathetic last week. And you know what? That says more about the dickhead that took a photo of him at a pub and sent it round to journos. It's like, that is so pathetic.
It says more about the journos as well for me.
Yeah,
I'm in the
exactly.
boat of you, Lynchy. It doesn't affect them.
No.
Port Adelaide aren't going to play harder. Yes, they might want to knock him over. He might actually might get a free kick. But if they lose that game, it's not because of a comment he said.
No.
But the media coverage of Ginninvan going to the pub and then this has been tenfold to a bloke down in Geelong that got carried out of a nightclub, passed out, where no one spoke about it.
Yeah.
There was, oh, no, we'll leave that alone. Well, hang on. Being carried out of a nightclub unconscious is a lot worse than what Ginnivan's done.
What?
And we've given this airtime for Ginnivan. It's incredible what we report on and what we want to go about.
It's TMZ.com type
Rubbish.
coverage.
Absolute
it's
rubbish.
genuine tabloid bullshit.
Yep.
And for
I find it staggering.
What?
I'm
you know-
definitely old school that, I'll just keep my head down.
Did you go out for dinner the night before a game when you played?
Probably not, but I was boring as batshit.
Yeah, that's true.
What would you be more concerned about, Lynchy? A teammate going to dinner and having a water the night before a game,
Yeah.
so he's just going out for dinner, maybe an Italian restaurant the other people went to or whatever, but he went to a pub so he could watch the footy, and sending a comment, or a teammate getting carried out of a nightclub unconscious?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I've got no problems with Jack making those comments and that sort of social media. Again, it's not my domain. All I'd be, and you remember, I sat next to Jason Ackermanis for 7 or 8 years, or 7 years.
Speaking of players with personality.
Actually, it was a lot more than that, actually. But he would make some comments. And I must admit, at one stage, the leadership group had a chat to Lee about some of Acker's comments. And Lee sort of clarified, it doesn't really make a difference. You know, what he says, it puts pressure on him. And so this was in a different era. So we get letters or emails printed out upstairs and brought down and put in our pigeonholes. And we were more concerned about Acker and the pressure it brought on him. And some of the letters that he got, he'd be reading in front of me and you go, geez, that's brutal. So I can imagine what Jack's getting now through the social media. So we'd be more concerned about Acker bringing pressure on himself, because like he'd make some comments and you know the opposition team were trying to get him. You know that, but in the end they couldn't get him. But we're more concerned about him. Yeah, it didn't really make a difference what he said. If he made a comment about the West Coast Eagles midfield, or I think he wrote something about Wayne Carey playing for Adelaide and he wouldn't be welcomed at our club, I think Acker said one day.
That's right.
It doesn't make a difference to us. I mean, just brings pressure on him. So we'd sort of have to support him at different times when he'd be getting bad in the media or all the getting these letters.
But the beauty and fun of playing footy and following footy and sport is the banter and the hype and the theatre of it. We're like, we don't want robots, and yet everyone is craving not robots, but when they start showing personality again, oh, we want a royal commission into this.
It's ridiculous. No mistake. There's teams that come up against Hawthorn because of the celebrations. They want to give them a clip.
Absolutely. And then when Hawthorn get beaten, give it back to them. You go, where's your hawk ball now? Where's your selfie? That's part of the fun.
When you're up and about, show your personality and character. It becomes an issue if he's not performing.
Yeah, exactly.
If he's not performing,
then
then you can say, mate, pull your head in until you get a kick. But he's getting a kick. He's backing it up. And
that's all sport.
Hawthorn fans are loving it.
They love every minute of it. They are so happy right now. Like, they are literally a happy team at Hawthorn.
Yeah.
They ride the bump, like the club song says it, they ride the bumps with a grin. They are just, it's
great for the game. Yeah, we're very harsh on
I think
at the moment. I think it's an old school mentality. It's players express themselves. They're putting pressure on themselves, not putting pressure on the club.
Look, Lynchy, it's not necessarily old school players like yourself having a view on it. It's more the journos who get sent a picture of a footballer having a meal at a pub and going full TMZ.com with this kind of crap. They're crap stories. Yeah. And they get attention. Yeah, they'll get engagement, but it's crap. And it says more about where they want to do these stories than, it's tabloid garbage. And,
Page 12 or whatever it's called.
Are you covering football for Channel 7 or are you working for Daily Mail with that shit? Honestly.
But again, the journo, if he's been sent the photo, he's putting it out there because it is in the public interest because we're talking about it 4 days later or 5 days later. So he's a walking headline, Jack, at the moment.
And Jack owns it too because, the next day he tweets, just went for a walk, breaking news. Like, he owns it.
His celebration was outstanding.
So it is.
I love everything about it. Jack, keep it up. I hope you go to a great... What pubs could Jack go to in Adelaide on Thursday night? Any pubs you'd recommend for him for a good feed?
Wild Horse or something like that.
Oh, on Highway Street. Don't muck around.
We asked for some suggestions on Saturday morning on Triple M, said where... There were some funny ones that came through, some not ideal ones. Someone said a local bank out at Snowtown, which I thought was way over the top. Yeah. But, they said they'd try and lock him up somewhere and not let him get to the venue.
There might be some Crows supporters that might want to dine him, train him to a nice meal.
Well, the Crows fans will be wine and dine him and roll out the red carpet to make sure he kicks 5 and has 40.
There's some great restaurants in Adelaide. Good place for a feed. Good pubs too.
Very good places down there.
Indeed. Now, quickly before we get to the snapshot, Geelong. Geez, they're good again. I'm sick of them.
7 prelims,
Enough
9
already.
years. They're just an outstanding club.
I said a few weeks ago, can they just be shit? They lost a few games. I thought, good.
Outstanding
Be
club.
crap.
Just the list management.
Stop being so good.
The Andrew Mackey and those guys, outstanding what they're able to do. They find little gold nuggets everywhere and turn them around.
We don't need kids in the draft. We'll just find some suburban player that's 27 years old and ready-made for AFL straight away. That's the Geelong way.
Potentially a 23-year-old superstar of the competition wants to wander down there as well.
And then they also know that any 18-year-old from the Geelong Bellarine Peninsula area that wants to go home in 2 years and shows any talent will come there.
Well, how good's
God, they're good.
Well, they are good, and as you said, it hasn't been through draft picks. It's been identifying talent, getting them into the system, and then developing actually while they're at the club. And I did hear, and quite rightly, Nigel Lappin was acknowledged as one of the key development coaches down there that sort of gets those players in their first few years and takes them through in more detailed game plans and what's demanded of from the coaching staff. I mean, you see, like guys like Manor. I mean, even Max Holmes. I mean, what he's done in the last 12 months, jumped up to an incredibly elite player. Manor, I hadn't really heard of him until recent weeks, and he's an accomplished league player by the look of his performance on the weekend. It is a great system, and it's the whole Bailey Smith wanting to go there. They just keep topping up at 23 years of age, a pick 7, just top up with nice players like that. It's going to be hard to stop them.
It's an extraordinary organisation. It's up there. It's probably Melbourne Storm.
Yep.
And then Geelong.
Geelong, the All Blacks. Like, Geelong should be a study.
All Blacks is a bit different because it's international. But I mean, competition.
Exactly.
In terms of a competition that has systems in place to make it equal, Melbourne Storm are number 1 by the length of
the Flemington Strait. Yep.
And then Geelong have to be up there.
I would say Geelong would be a case study in world sport for wanting to be a consistently successful
particularly
club.
Around drafts and that.
Absolutely.
I reckon it reinforces that's how important getting key people into your organisation. Now, and we probably don't even know the actual key people down there because they probably don't get the headlines like a Nigel Lappin. He may play, it sounds like he plays a pivotal role in developing talent there. Chris Scott, you need, Hocking there. Yep. You need some key people in key positions, and then you develop this sort of process. And I think you're right, for the Melbourne Storm to be more than relevant, but be pushing for flags almost every year in a non-rugby league state is incredible. I would have in that group the Sydney Swans.
I was going to say the Swans are probably in the... If it's a Geelong and Sydney grand final, after the season we've had, that's a real letdown because it's just more of the same.
to stay relevant in a rugby league like the Sydney Swans. And what they've done over the years, they've either developed their own through the academies.
Isaac Heeney.
There was a lot of recycled players for a generation there that went up there. Josh Kennedy couldn't get a game and went on to be essentially a Hall of Famer. They're a great club. They are great clubs, and I think everyone that's at another club who's looking at those clubs. How can we do things better? How can we be like them? Because now they've got their system. It's hard to see it breaking, that cycle breaking.
Sometimes the AFL system will get the other successful clubs, as is what we've seen with Hawthorn, as is what we've seen with my mob, as is what happened to the Brisbane Lions. It took the Brisbane Lions a long time, but the system got them eventually. So, yeah.
I think free agency. Was supposedly designed so the bottom clubs could go get the top players.
Never going to happen.
Salary cap. It goes the other way.
No,
so Bailey Smith will take a pay cut on what he could get at a lot of other clubs to go to Geelong. Patrick Dangerfield elected, I don't know whether he got a pay cut, but he could have got more money to go to another club and goes to Geelong. They've doing it beautifully, and it's going to be hard to break the cycle because they're just so successful at developing talent and developing their own talent as well,
and retaining
stars.
Well, it's a great place to live as well. You've got a damn good lifestyle down there in old Sleepy Hollow. Moving right along here on Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions, let's develop a multi and some knowledge because it's time for the snapshot. Ryan and Tom, right now.
All the betting trends you need to know from the world of footy. This is the Snapshot.
That part of the week where we jump into some betting chat with Tom Rockliff. We've only got 2 games to pick from this week, mate. We're going to preview both of them. We won't talk about what happened last week just yet, so let's jump straight into Port taking on my Hawks. This is a battle between our 2 teams, but you tell me before we started filming that you're a Hawks fan now.
No, not a Hawks fan, but a soft spot. My first cousin, Harry Morrison, plays there, wears the number 1 jersey, so I do have a soft spot for them, want them to do well. Flip of the coin this week. I think it could go either way, this game, to be honest. I know Hawthorn are in great form and Port Adelaide are going to have to find a way to bounce back, but Adelaide Oval Friday night, she's going to be a ripper.
Going to be a ripper, and it was a ripper when these 2 sides last met back in round 10. The Hawks led by 5 goals at three-quarter time, famously went on to lose by a single point. The goal kicking was very interesting that night, though. Blake Hardwick kicked 5 for the Hawks. Dan Houston and Willie Rioli were in the goals for Port Adelaide. If you had to pick a safe goal kicker in this one, Rocky, who are you leaning towards?
Safe goal kicker. This will be a lead into our multi a little bit later. I'm going to go Horn Francis. I think he's going to spend a bit of time out of the goal square. They'll put a bit of time and attention into him through the midfield. So I reckon he'll drift forward a bit more, come out of the goal square, 1 out, and maybe the match winner for Port Adelaide.
Well, fingers crossed. And what do you make of Marbio Chol last week? He struggled massively. Probably the worst game he's played all year. Struggled to take a contested mark, blew a few chances. Do you think this could be a revenge game for him?
Yeah, well, he's going to have to try and fire, isn't he? I mean, he's probably had his best season to date. He started a bit slow down there at Hawthorn. We know he's had his issues in the past, but he found a way to play some really good footy. Last week wasn't his best output. Friday night, 18 degrees, no rain in Adelaide. Should set up okay for him. He's going to have a challenge, whether he gets a Lear or, depending who goes to him, Zerk Thatcher. He's going to have a tough night. But for Hawthorn to win, he's going to have an impact as well.
I tend to agree with you there, mate. Let's look ahead to GWS taking on Brisbane. Another fascinating matchup in terms of the narrative because we both saw these 2 clubs play only a few weeks ago up at the Gabba. Another game where Brisbane led quite comfortably and then blew the lead. GWS got on top in the stoppages in the second half. Jesse Hogan kicked 3 goals. The Lions haven't played at the Showground since 2020. Do you think that's a big factor for this game?
Yeah, potentially. I don't think I ever played there my whole time at Brisbane. I think you don't venture there much as a line. They generally play in Canberra or they play up here and whatnot. So I think the venue certainly will favour the Giants, but this is going to be a ripping contest as well. But there is no faith in Brisbane's ability to play 4 quarters at the moment. We've seen that on the weekend where they're 60 points up, game over. They just stop, come in and out of games, and inaccuracy is going to kill them at some point. Again, on the weekend, we've seen that happen. Hawthorn kicked the same scoreline, but it hasn't been a trend for Hawthorn where it's a trend for the Lions, and if they don't take their opportunities against the Giants, they're going to find it very difficult. I mean, the Giants are stiff to be playing this week. They should probably be having the week off. Sydney found a way to get up, but again, I think these 2 finals this weekend will be both must-watch footy.
It felt like last time when they met these 2 clubs, Brisbane and GWS, Harris Andrews was perhaps the most frustrated he's been all year down back because of Jesse Hogan. Are you happy to back Hogan to kick at least 3 in this one?
Oh, brave man. Yeah, I think Hogan's, if Hawthorn win the flag, they're the story of the year, but Hogan's the story of the year, his ability to win the Coleman for his journey, what he's been through. So I think he'll have an impact in that forward half of the ground. Hogan, Andrews, he'll want to respond. And you speak about the last time they played, the Lions were dominant in the first quarter and a bit, and then the Giants found a bit of momentum and got over them on their home deck. So if the Giants are to win, I think Hogan's going to have to kick 3 or 4, potentially 4. So, maybe put him down for 3.
Ryan and Rocky are cooking up another multi. Surely it gets up this week.
That's a nice little segue into our multi, but let's recap what happened last week. I didn't go so well to start. Backed your Port Adelaide power to cover the line. That was over by about half-time. I did take the Giants to cover the alternate line, 17.5 in the Battle of the Bridge. That's the only leg we got up. And you had the Bont 2+ and Ollie Wines 25+.
Yeah, I was pretty close. I think Ollie had 23, 24, so 1 or 2. And the Bont, he should have had 2 if I think it was Norton had a shepherded that one at the start of the last quarter to kick his second. But, yeah, we were nowhere near it all over Thursday night.
We've gone large again this week. You're leading us off. You've taken Jason Horne-Francis 2+ goals. You've already justified that one. I have taken the Hawks head-to-head, and I'm also taking Jesse Hogan 3+ goals. What's your last leg, mate?
I'm going to take Lachie Neale 30+. I don't think the Giants will tag him. I think he'll wreak havoc through the midfield. So we're going. I think this looks juicy by the sounds of it. With 3+, 2+, 30+. The lowest leg's going to be Hawthorn, who are the favourites, about $1.50, $1.60 at the moment on Neds on Tuesday morning.
It's very juicy. So to recap, we've got Jason Horne-Francis 2+ goals, Lachie Neale 30+ disposals, the Hawks head-to-head, Jesse Hogan 3+ goals, $25.32 if you don't mind.
Oh, that would be a semi-final fill-up.
We need it, mate. We're struggling big time. We won't talk any more about that, though. Good chat as always. Hopefully we can get some winners home.
Good on you, Ryan. Have a good week.
You're listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions.
You are listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Dylan and Lynchy back with you in the studio. That's a nice juicy multi you've got there.
Yeah, $25 this week.
Take us through it.
We'll get through it when we do the wrap up because I'll remember this time. I'll remember this time.
First time you'll remember.
We are getting ready to wrap up on the show. Some magnificent football this weekend. We've got obviously the Port and the Hawks on Friday night. Then we got the Giants and the Lions on Saturday night at Giants Stadium. Now, Lynchy, you're a Giants Stadium regular. Are you going down for that?
I'll be there for that one.
Now, hopefully we can get a decent crowd there on Saturday night. It'd be really sad if there's going to be 10,000 people or anything like that. Hopefully it's full.
It'll be full.
It'll be full?
I'm confident it'll be full. I mean, granted, not every Giants fan or member goes to every game, but surely they're going to this one.
And also, thank goodness that I was a bit, not concerned. It would have been annoying had the Bulldogs-Manly clash in the NRL Finals been on at exactly the same time, which it was looking at. And that's been played next door at a core on Sunday instead, because it would have just been turned into a silly Code Wars thing, which I know we extract a lot on our content because you all comment on it. But
Code Wars are stupid, aren't they?
They are
Code
stupid.
Wars.
They are ridiculous.
The AFL's that far in front. It's not even fun. Well, it is. The crowd attendance, the TV ratings are through the roof for AFL.
But it's good for Sydney sport that they can go to both.
Yeah,
because
100%.
The Bulldogs and Manly final on Sunday will be massive, but the Giants and Lions on Saturday night. I genuinely think that could be as good a game as what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah.
In the Sydney derby.
They've set it up so it's a Port and Brisbane grand final, which is good.
Which is good for you. Yeah. I mean, you're just
that's why Port coughed up.
Yeah. It's just so you two can just dine out on the functions and I don't. And Lynchy can just extract a bit more of a fee to tell a certain story that people will want him to talk about. But I'm genuinely really excited for. I think Giants and Lions could potentially be as good a final.
I think both of them. I think both games are going to be cracking for different reasons. Like Port Adelaide need to respond. Hawthorn are up and about playing as good footy. I think Friday night will be a ripper, and then I think Saturday night will be a ripper as well. I think we're situated for 3 really good weeks of footy.
Yeah, week 2 has traditionally been a bit of a hazy kind of week. There hasn't been that many good semi-finals, and I know this because I was doing the sort of recap I wrote for the record. But week 2 doesn't have as many.
Slide that one in there, Lynchy.
Week 2 has a few iconic finals, but it's usually been the first and the third week in particular that's provided the real epic contests. So it'll be interesting to see how this week goes, because there's usually one semi-final that's a bit of a fizzer.
Well, I'm tipping that they're both going to be rippers.
Okay.
That's
I'm looking forward to both games. Looking forward to what do Hawthorn do with Sam Frost going out of the side? And he's such an important player structurally to them, so they're going to have to go smaller down back. So does Charlie Dixon play? Do Port Adelaide run the risk of going big? And then if they don't mark the ball being slow. The other game will be high scoring, you'd imagine, between Lions and the Giants. They both run the ball exceedingly well. One player to keep a watch, I mean, we know he's a young star, Will Ashcroft, what he's doing, and we mentioned it last week about, I see him similar to Lockie Neal, can go inside. He's playing more on the outside at the moment, but he just puts players into better positions. So he had 20 touches on the weekend. He went at 95% disposal efficiency and had 9 scoring involvements, the most on the ground. He's an absolute star. So he's just sneaking along on his recovery from that ACL injury and just playing some great footy, and he's about to burst, and it might be during the final season where he has a massive one.
Looking forward to it.
I'm just going around the grounds here for Hawthorn supporters looking to travel back from the Hawthorn Port Adelaide game. So if you're doing Melbourne to Adelaide at the moment, because the airlines,
$900 or something.
No, not quite. Hang on, I'm just having a look at Webjet. The best I can get at the moment is $831 return, Melbourne to Adelaide. So that's as cheap as it gets right now. How good's that?
Drive over.
Yeah, your best driving
road
over.
trip.
Oh, a bus?
Bus.
Get the bus. That's good. All right, time to wrap up here on Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Before we go, Rocky.
Yes.
Would you like to recap the multi for us this week?
This week, a couple of same games, obviously. Horn Francis 2+ and Hawthorn to win. Into Lockie Neal 30+ and Hogan to kick 3+, $25.32.
Oh, if you don't mind. How'd we go last week?
One from 4.
Which leg was that? Was it Ryan's leg?
Ryan's leg.
Yeah,
we
that
had.
Makes sense.
He took Port Adelaide at the line, so that was over. I had Ollie Wines 25+.
Yeah.
Bontempelli 2+, and he took Giants at a -17.5.
Oh well.
You get 17.
You get the double chance this time, so you can rebound. If you get $25 up in the second week of the finals, that's outstanding.
Big semi-final fill-up.
Any sort of win for you guys, I reckon.
Just take the win. If you back a $1.10 favourite, it's all good. It's all good.
Just something, for goodness sake.
All right, so I usually say, what are you looking forward to this weekend? But I think we've established we're looking forward to all of the footy that's being played. 2 games. Oh, and there's some AFLW, and also there's the local footy finals that are kicking off as well. In the depths of VFL Sandful finals, the VAFA finals kick off. Shane Fitzroy, Lynchy, by the way, couldn't quite stay in A grade, which was a disappointment, but they'll go again and win the B grade flag next year. Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Thanks, Lynchy.
Yeah, good chat, fellas. And thanks for dialing me in. I'll see you back there live next week.
I look forward to it. We'll catch you then.
Thanks for listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Enjoyed the podcasts? Remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.